The rise and fall of gaming franchises is a regular talking point in the industry. Whether it's a studio going under or a title that tarnishes a legacy, there are plenty of IPs to choose from. Let's talk about Volition, an American developer formerly based in Illinois. Having closed their doors after 30 years in game development, this company had their highlights through the years, being best known for the Saints Row franchise. But there was one game back in 2009 that showcased their talents in a different way. We're taking a look back at Red Faction Guerrilla, a title that came out of nowhere and earned its place among the most enjoyable releases of that year. In the early days, Red Faction was very middle of the road in both budget and quality. The first two games toyed with destructible environments, but they often fell very short in the execution. Blowing up a corridor here and solving a puzzle there, it was a small glimpse of where gaming technology was headed with the GeoMod engine. The PC version of Red Faction 1 stood out for its glass house mode, which allowed players to experiment with the game's tools. This would be taken much further on the 7th console generation. Volition eventually hit their stride here in the mid-2000s, beating Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto 4 to the punch by 2 years with a slew of new features in the open world genre. Eventually, the dev team decided to return to their dormant series. Red Faction Guerrilla flipped things on their head. Instead of going through underground tunnels, now you were let loose in wide open spaces. Rather than blowing up walls and pieces of Martian rock, you could now level entire buildings to the ground. In short, Volition took their open world experience and applied it to Red Faction, successfully rejuvenating the franchise in the process. The story of Alec Mason and his mission to tear down the authoritarian Earth Defense Force was shallow and uninteresting, but it hardly mattered. This game was clearly focused on fun above all else. With shorter cutscenes and a basic premise, Guerrilla wastes no time letting you loose in Parker Sector, allowing the destructible buildings to make a brilliant impression. With your trusty sledgehammer, demolition charges and other more exotic tools, razing entire structures to the ground is your primary means of engagement. GeoMod 2.0 holds it all together. When you smash through a building, the section breaks and crumbles gradually. Take out enough corners and the entire thing comes tumbling down. Simple smokestacks are your first targets, marked by blue stars on the map. Aside from specific environmental elements in Far Cry 2 and the Worms franchise, gamers had never seen anything like this. At the time, I picked up on Red Faction Guerrilla straight away with the free demo on console. Even this small slice of the game was highly replayable. In turn, this allows you to mix up your tactics on the fly. Sneaking in on foot and taking down every building piece by piece is just one of many options. Strap a car with explosives and drive it into a base, use the jetpack to get a higher angle for the rocket launcher, fire the nano rifle to take out key supports. This dynamic gameplay allowed Guerrilla to stand out in a crowded market. Other titles that year with open environments included Assassin's Creed 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, Infamous, Prototype and Borderlands among other heavy hitters. Your demolition skills are also put to the test with many environmental challenges, which task you with blowing up structures as quickly as possible. The game engine really comes into its own here as you figure out the best way to reach critical status. Early on, it's a simple case of blowing up the foundations, but later on you need to be a lot more creative, toppling the upper components and bringing them down on others. The weapons and tools also feed into the sandbox. Functionality is split into demolition, anti-infantry, and utility. Your remote charges and mines can be combined to create more powerful explosions, while the thermobaric rockets deliver a mighty blast to anyone who gets in your way. The arc wielder and grinder are industrial tools that can be upgraded to target multiple foes or penetrate armor, and some of the regular weapons have their own unique traits. The railgun was always one of my personal favourites, a powerful late-game sniper that can shoot through walls and enemy vehicles to take out their occupants. More recent versions of Guerrilla incorporated backpacks like the Rhino Charge and Healing Glow, allowing for even more tactical approaches. Much like Just Cause 2, which came out a year later, every element of Guerrilla's destructive sandbox is tied into the open world and mission objectives. The EDF's control lowers every time you destroy one of their buildings. Guerrilla actions like rescuing hostages or defending your comrades grants you more upgrades, and searching for ore deposits and radio messages in the game world aids your destructive efforts. All of this content rarely feels like busy work. The only real problem with the gameplay loop is how brutal the missions can get on higher difficulties. The EDF are absolutely relentless and spawn endlessly until you flee from the area. Hit and run tactics are an absolute must to stay alive. Other smaller issues include the slow grind of collecting salvage to afford upgrades and the powerful walkers being limited to a few missions. Still, just about everything else in this third entry is too much fun. Add on a selection of unique multiplayer modes and the Demons of the Badlands expansion and we had a surefire hit. Even the Wrecking Crew mode had its own novelty, serving up a score attack mode for local multiplayer. Red Faction had finally found its footing, 2 strikes then a home run. Surely Volition had everything they needed to make a standout sequel. You could improve the destruction engine and apply it on a larger scale, add in flying vehicles, make the open world more interesting, and perhaps even include some campaign co-op for multiple players. Sadly, it was not to be. 2011's Red Faction Armageddon wasn't an awful game, but it threw away so much. The open world was scaled back into corridors, the story took an unwanted centre stage, and the destruction from Geomod was heavily neutered by the more restrictive level design. It's as if the studio took every lesson they learned with Guerrilla and decided to go in reverse. When compared with its predecessor, Armageddon didn't have much to offer or enough innovation to make it stand out. With 2011 being an equally crowded year, it's no surprise that it didn't do so well on a commercial level. The Red Faction series crashed out, with Armageddon costing THQ $38.4 million. In turn, this failure undoubtedly contributed to the publisher's own bankruptcy, plunging the IP into obscurity once again. Volition went right back to Saints Row, which slowly wore out its welcome and ended up killing the studio in 2023. As for Red Faction, in 2018 developer THQ Nordic did put out a re-release on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, alongside a refined Steam version entitled Remastered, but this didn't result in a new entry. In 2020, the rights to Red Faction were transferred to Deep Silver, who still didn't bring the franchise back. Volition did eventually retain ownership, but they were too busy working on the critically maligned Saints Row reboot. After bouncing around so many studios and publishers, Red Faction now belongs to Plaion, a German-Austrian media company. The odds of the series being resurrected are now slimmer than ever. Over a decade after release, Red Faction Guerrilla is marked by lost potential, a piece of technology that wasn't fully explored by the industry. Much of this stems from Geomod 2.0 itself. After Red Faction Armageddon, it was never used again, not even in the Saints Row series, and to this day no developer has managed to improve on it. DICE and the Battlefield series reached their own peak with Frostbite 2 in 2011, but the industry didn't get much further than that. In fact, destructible environments in gaming seem to have gone backwards, with the likes of Crackdown 3 and Battlefield 2042 failing to make good use of new technology. Aside from the occasional standouts from the indie scene, fully destructible environments in gaming is a promise unfulfilled. Thanks for watching. The Red Faction franchise deserved so much better. It's a huge shame that Volition went in the wrong direction. What were your favourite moments from Guerrilla, and what would you have wanted in a full sequel? Pop your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, links to my content are in the description.